It was sometime around summer 2019, buried deep beneath the chest of my ill-begotten memories, half consolidated in the ever-fading throes of my alcoholic's brain. What started off as an on-and-off love affair became habit, ritual, marriage, eventually divorce, and in the most uninteresting way possible. Out of boredom. Concurrent with what was, at the time, the ongoing theme of this channel, there is neither much to do nor say about being unemployed and staying in one's room all the time. It was honestly a miracle that I bled as much as I did out of that whole string of topics. I would have went outside to find something to say, but in what was perhaps the closest rendition of Nicaragua one might find stateside, going outside proved difficult. Indeed, haphazardly slathered concrete cracking at the seams in the tiny crevice allotted for walking, if there was any at all, did not lead to a story. Eventually I and the room I inhabited, as the room would come to inhabit me, would enter a sort of stasis. After living in stasis so long, the only thing to do is deliberately undo it by altering one's consciousness, which led me to drink. It was fun. It's surprising that I wasn't led similarly astray by boredom up to that point, given that the environment I grew up in was primarily rural and Hopkinsville, Kentucky, in comparison, had quite a lot more going on. Imagine 1,000 sparsely apart from one another, separated by forest, up next to over 30,000 people, some of whom have small businesses with at least a modicum of personality. Sure, I had video games for the first 16 years of my life, and late into that timeline, satellite internet that went a little faster than dial-up. Data rates may apply. But rarely did I take advantage of those things that would otherwise keep most of you in that same environment sane. Most of my time growing up was spent aimlessly pacing the same few acres of land we owned, the bright southern sun darkening my shadow, with trees etched by hundreds of inner markings as my observer. The time not spent outside in the same places doing the same things was spent inside, either making hopeless attempts at conversation with my family, trying their damnedest to appear oblivious and absent-minded, or, more likely, sitting alone in my room, staring at the same surrounding walls, entertained by the vivid circus making its rounds throughout my imagination. Images, tastes, smells, sounds, and the words of fantastical lands possessed me, alongside less image-heavy commentary as their interludes. Absolutely nothing could tear me from the all-encompassing force that was my imagination, my brain's dialogue with itself, pantomiming back and forth to a crowd empty of any participant without the invite addressed to I. No one dare touch me here, for I am a free boy, not held down by the arbitrary rules and regulations that govern social interaction with the very few I knew. Brought to you by the Fourth and only amendment in the constitution of my brain, the right to privacy. That was the law endowed to me, the only I would abide by. No crime, however large, existed in the realm of the mind. The crimes I was so used to committing otherwise had I opened my mouth in the presence of those few I knew. It has been said that there is no tyranny in the state of confusion, and indeed with thoughts as free-flowing and lacking in care as mine, confusion would be the only word known to an outside observer. To those whose mind is wrought by the same paperwork that governs social interaction with those few I knew. And in that sense, I was free of tyranny. I knew of something they did not, coming to spread the good news of the imagination to one and only myself. There was one spark that ignited that circus early on, one that I alone did not have a hand in setting. That was literature. Because of my mother. In spite of the largely negative image of her I've painted thus far, one thing I am eternally grateful to her for, and inadvertently provided an escape from her subsequent tyranny, is literature, a love of literature she planted in me. As far back as you can go, further than even the recesses of my memory dating back to my time as a 2-year-old can reach, she read to me every night, and not only did she read to me every night, she inquired as we did, asking me to identify certain words, explaining what they meant, asking what I thought of the story, its themes, its characters, with jokes along the way, as to not alienate my blossoming mind. And it was here I was given the most welcoming, the most painstaking, the most memorable first impression that screams of "I need to see them again" to my mind. Bedtime became my favorite time, not because I was asleep, but because of what I learned was possible in the last moments I was awake. Beauty, wonder, adventure, melancholy, what was becoming of my empathy, laughs, even cries. Every following night, I built a rapport with the many possibilities of the mind, fueling what started off as an on and off love affair that became habit, ritual, marriage, eventually betrayal. You see, nothing suppresses all of what I just described quite like the man's, that is, the tyrannical's, favorite pathway to an altered state of consciousness: alcohol. With inhibitory action at the GABA-A receptor, alcohol is a depressant. It deadens the color of the world much in the same vein as its benzodiazepine and opioid counterparts. The kicker being that it also damages your brain with time, unlike those two insidious friends, only cementing its role in our descent from the land of the free. When I felt like I had nothing left, like the liberating effect of my mind no longer stuck in face of mounting boredom, I turned to suppress that which brought the world to life, because that which brought the world to life was only bringing me the feeling of death. Purgatory, then, seemed appealing. For a year and a half, with some breaks, daily alcohol intake well exceeded that which would otherwise drown a fish, until the day it stopped being fun. That was the day I stopped, to the tune of tremors, restless legs, sweaty palms, and a racing heart on the verge of bursting. I stopped. It was at that point my imagination started back up, filling in the gaps left by alcohol, my purgatory, suppressing all of life. It was at that point I realized what a grave mistake I made, being led astray from my rock, the thing that gave me hope and purpose, laughter, love, and life, the one that existed only for me, that I had come to learn nobody could replace, in stark contrast to the tyranny that existed around me. She and I were free. And now that I am no longer trapped by the fuel-draining presence that was America's Nicaragua, surrounded by books to further the vividness of the mind, in a place with new stories to tell at every corner, as it is walkable with places to walk to, I am happy. I am free. Tyranny's intoxicants to my back, and the sprawling prairie overlooking me, beckoning me forward. I am free. Go west, young man.